Have you ever sat alone, staring at a blank screen or a blank page, feeling like your brain is working against you? Like everyone else was born with some secret mental advantage you somehow missed? You watch people online, innovators, creators, thinkers, and you wonder, how do they come up with ideas so easily? What makes them think differently? What makes them genius? If you've ever felt that, then listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you flips the entire idea of intelligence upside down. And once you understand it, even just once, you will never look at your mind the same way again. You see, everyone thinks a genius is someone born with a bigger brain, a special gift, or a rare talent carved into their DNA. But what if I told you that genius has almost nothing to do with natural ability? What if the thing that makes a genius is actually a habit, a mental pattern, a way of looking at the world that anyone, and I mean anyone, can learn? The truth is, geniuses aren't defined by what they know. They're defined by how they think. And that is something you can train, like a muscle, starting right now. Because the real difference between a normal thinker and a genius thinker isn't intelligence, it's awareness. Imagine this. Your brain is constantly talking, constantly throwing thoughts at you. Random worries, memories, doubts, ideas, distractions, everything. Most people take that stream as it is. They don't question it. They don't direct it. They don't shape it. But a genius? A genius watches their thoughts like a scientist observing an experiment. They don't just think. They notice themselves thinking. And that tiny gap between thought and awareness is where genius begins. Here's the part people never realize. Your brain is not a factory that produces genius ideas on its own. It's a machine that needs direction. It needs prompts. It needs the right questions. And the reason geniuses seem smarter isn't because they know everything. It's because they constantly ask themselves questions that unlock deeper layers of thought. Questions like, what if the opposite were true? What am I missing? What would a child think about this? What would happen if I removed the obvious? These questions bend the mind. They reshape your thinking. They create mental shortcuts to insight. But here's the crazy part. Most people never even use their brain this way. Not because they can't, but because no one ever showed them how. You were taught facts. Geniuses were taught possibilities. You were taught answers. Geniuses were taught questions. You were taught to avoid mistakes. Geniuses were taught to explore them. And that's why the moment you shift from trying to think correctly to trying to think differently, your mind starts opening in ways you've never experienced before. So let's start simple. The first step to thinking like a genius is realizing that your thoughts aren't fixed. They're flexible, they're stretchable, they're shapeable. When you stop accepting the first thought that appears in your mind and start playing with it, twisting it, flipping it, stretching it, questioning it, you activate a part of your brain called divergent thinking, the exact mechanism behind creativity, rare insight, and problem solving. Imagine you're holding a key, a golden, beautifully crafted key. This key doesn't open a door outside of you, it opens a door inside you. And behind that door is the creative power you always thought only special people had. But you have it too. You always did. You simply never learned how to unlock it. And here's where things truly begin. Geniuses are not afraid of confusion. In fact, they lean into it. They're not scared of being wrong. They're scared of staying the same. So if you want to think like a genius, even if you've never thought of yourself as one, your journey starts with a simple truth. Your mind is capable of more than you've ever asked of it. You just need to learn how to ask better. And this is where the real transformation begins. because in the next part, you'll learn the hidden mental frameworks used by history's greatest minds, the ones that let them break patterns, solve the unsolvable, and see what others overlook. These aren't tricks or hacks. They're mental engines. And once you install them into your thinking, you'll never go back. Here's the truth most people never hear. Geniuses don't think more. They think deeper, slower, and stranger than everyone else. Their minds wander in places others ignore. Their thoughts connect where others break. And the real secret isn't that they're born with better brains. It's that they use the brain they have in a different way. Let's start with the first framework, pattern breaking. You see, the average person thinks in straight lines. This leads to this, so that must lead to that. But geniuses, they don't follow the line. They bend it. They stretch it. They ask, what if this line isn't a line at all? Take Einstein. He didn't ask, how does light work? Like everyone else. He asked, what would I see if I rode on a beam of light? That's not a normal question. That's a pattern-breaking question. It disrupts the mind. It forces it to create new pathways. Now, imagine applying this to your everyday life. You want to solve a problem? Don't ask, how do I fix this? Ask, what if this isn't a problem but a message? What if the solution is hiding in the opposite direction? Suddenly, your brain starts working in ways it never has. You're no longer in a mental cage. You're outside it, looking in. The second framework is the child's mind. Genius-level thinkers do something unusual. They temporarily let go of experience. Sounds insane, right? Experience is useful, but it also traps you. It tells you what things usually are, which stops you from seeing what they could be. Children don't have that limitation. They explore, they poke, they test, they break, they wonder, they ask why 1,000 times. They assume nothing, and that is genius in its purest form. So the next time you're stuck, ask yourself, if I had never seen this before, if I were seeing it for the first time, how would I think about it? This resets your mental lens. It turns complexity into clarity. It reignites curiosity. The fuel geniuses run on. The third framework is something so powerful yet so underrated, slow thinking. Not lazy, not distracted, but intentionally slow. Look at Leonardo da Vinci. His notebooks weren't full of quick ideas. They were full of ideas he revisited over and over for years. He didn't rush insight, he let it simmer. People today are addicted to speed. Answers must be instant. Solutions must be immediate. But genius doesn't rush. Genius distills. It extracts the truth drop by drop. Try this. The next time you get a good idea, don't run with it. Sit with it. Turn it around in your mind. Look at it from new angles. Ask it questions. Let it evolve. Most people have shallow ideas because they sprint with the first thought they get. Geniuses walk with the idea until it deepens. The fourth framework is productive contradictions. The mind hates contradiction, but geniuses embrace it. They think of two opposite ideas at once, ideas that shouldn't go together, and they force their brain to solve the tension. That's how breakthroughs happen. Nikola Tesla imagined systems that were impossible at the time. Jobs combined art with computers when everyone else thought they couldn't mix. Stephen Hawking held the idea that black holes destroy information and don't destroy information at the same time, until the contradiction itself unlocked the next insight. So here's your exercise. Whenever you have two ideas that conflict, don't choose one. Hold both. Let them fight in your mind. Let the pressure cook something new. That tension is where genius is born. The fifth framework, maybe the most important, is nonlinear insight. Geniuses don't rely on step-by-step thinking. Instead, They make jumps. Big, strange, intuitive leaps. They connect dots that don't belong together. But here's the twist. Those leaps are not magic. They're built on one key ability, absorbing information widely. Not deeply, widely. Geniuses consume everything: art, science, nature, psychology, history. Not because they need it, but because inspiration hides in unexpected places. So if you want to think like a genius, broaden your input. Read one thing you'd never normally read. Watch one video that has nothing to do with your interests. Talk to someone different from you. Every new input becomes a new dot in your brain, and eventually, those dots connect. Now, let's combine everything. Pattern breaking, child mind curiosity, slow thinking, contradiction, non-linear jumps. These are not tricks. These are mental architectures. Build them into your thinking, and the world will feel different. Problems will shrink. Ideas will multiply. Your mind will feel like it has more space, more colors, more dimensions. But this is where things get interesting, because thinking like a genius is only half the story. The real breakthrough comes when you learn how geniuses use their thoughts to shape their reality, how they take mental clarity and transform it into action, obsession, momentum, and mastery. Thinking like a genius is powerful, but becoming one in your own life requires something deeper, something more personal, something most people run from: responsibility over your thoughts, your actions, your direction, and your destiny. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Genius isn't an outcome. It's a lifestyle, a momentum, a way of moving through the world where your mind becomes your greatest ally, not your biggest obstacle. And if you're listening right now, that means you're ready for that shift. Let's begin with the first truth. Geniuses don't wait for clarity, they create it. Most people delay action because they're waiting for the perfect idea, the perfect plan, the perfect moment. But here's the secret. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. Newton didn't plan gravity. He noticed an apple fall, and he questioned it. Jobs didn't plan the iPhone years ahead. He followed sparks until they caught fire. Every genius you admire started with small steps that looked like nothing until they became everything. So the next time you feel uncertain, don't freeze. Move, test, explore. Let action sharpen your thinking. The second truth is this. Geniuses simplify what others complicate. The world loves complexity. It loves to make things sound deep, advanced, impossible. But geniuses, they strip ideas down until they fit in the palm of your hand. They look for the essence, the core, the heartbeat. Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." And that's not just a quote, it's a philosophy. When you start simplifying problems, you stop being overwhelmed. You stop drowning in details, and your brain becomes sharper, clearer, more focused. Genius thinking is not about knowing more, it's about knowing what matters. Third truth, geniuses protect their internal world like treasure. They know their thoughts shape their emotions shape their actions, and their actions shape their life. But most people let anything interrupt their focus. Notifications, noise, opinions, judgments. Geniuses build mental walls. They create boundaries. They design environments that support deep thinking. Da Vinci would disappear for days just to think. Einstein took long walks in silence. Steve Jobs removed everything unnecessary from his life. Not because he wanted minimalism, but because he wanted mental clarity. You don't need to isolate yourself, but you do need to protect your mind from chaos. The fourth truth? Geniuses use failure as a tool, not a verdict. Regular people see failure as a wall. Geniuses see it as a mirror. They look into it, analyze it, extract lessons from it. They know failure is not the opposite of success. It's the engine that drives it. Edison tested over 1,000 failed light bulbs. Musk watched rockets explode. Dyson built 5,126 prototypes of a vacuum that didn't work. Geniuses don't avoid failure. They interrogate it. They turn it into data. And this mindset alone can transform your life. Because once you remove the fear of failure, your brain becomes fearless too. The fifth truth is the most powerful of all. Geniuses build identity around growth, not perfection. They don't say, I'm smart or I'm talented. They say, I'm learning. Because the moment you label yourself as smart, you start avoiding things that might prove you wrong. But when you identify as a learner, every challenge becomes an opportunity. Every problem becomes a puzzle. Every setback becomes a stepping stone. Growth becomes your default. And growth, more than anything, is what makes geniuses unstoppable. Now, here's where everything connects. The frameworks from Part 1 and Part 2 only transform your life when you align them with this identity. When you stop thinking like a passenger in your own mind and start thinking like the driver. When you embrace curiosity, slow thinking, contradictions, creative leaps, and combine them with action, simplicity, resilience, and growth. That's when genius thinking becomes genius living. Imagine your life 6 months from now. You wake up with a sharper mind. Problems that once felt impossible now feel like puzzles. You trust your thoughts. You trust your creativity. You feel capable, confident, and calm under pressure. And not because you became smarter, but because you learned to think differently. You learn to use the mind you already have at a higher level. And this is the final truth. You don't need permission to think like a genius. Not from your parents, not from your teachers, not from society. Genius isn't a title someone gives you. It's a mindset you build day by day, choice by choice, thought by thought. No one becomes a genius overnight. They become one in moments. Moments like this, where they decide their brain is not the limitation, but the superpower.